Elizabeth was born in London on April 21st, 1926. Her parents were Prince Albert and Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. She had a younger sister named Margaret, born in 1930. Elizabeth's father became King George VI in 1936. This happened after her uncle, King Edward VIII, gave up the throne to Mary Wallis Simpson. Elizabeth's new role as heir meant that one day she would become queen. This changed her life and future forever. Elizabeth's mother played a big role in her early years. She taught her kindness and how to help others. Elizabeth also had a governess, Marion Crawford, to teach her at home. Elizabeth studied history, music, and languages. She worked hard to learn about her country. These studies would later help her become a good queen. During World War II, Elizabeth and her sister Margaret stayed safe in castles away from London. They stayed at Windsor Castle and other homes. Elizabeth learned about leadership from her parents. She watched her father during World War II as he helped the country stay strong. She wanted to be like him. While in Windsor, Elizabeth gave a radio speech in 1940 to children who had to leave their homes. She told them to stay brave and hopeful. This speech was one of the first times Elizabeth showed she cared about people. It made the country proud of the young princess. Elizabeth married Philip Mountbatten on November 20th, 1947. The wedding took place in Westminster Abbey, a famous church in London. Philip had been a prince of Greece and Denmark before moving to England. Before the wedding, he was given the title Duke of Edinburgh. After the wedding, Elizabeth and Philip lived in Clarence House, a home in London. They were very happy together. In 1948, Elizabeth and Philip had their first child, Charles. He was born at Buckingham Palace. Charles became the heir to the throne. Their second child, Anne, was born in 1950. Anne loved horses and outdoor activities, just like her mother. Elizabeth and Philip loved their children, but were often busy with royal duties. They spent time together whenever they could. The family grew larger over the years. Andrew, their third child, was born in 1960. Edward, their youngest, was born in 1964. Elizabeth wanted her children to have a happy life. She gave them care and support while teaching them about their royal roles. The royal family often traveled together and took part in public events. They were seen as an example for families in the country. In February 1952, King George VI died. Elizabeth was in Kenya when she heard the sad news. She became queen at the age of 25. Elizabeth flew back to England right away. She began her new duties as queen while mourning the loss of her father. The coronation took place on June 2, 1953, at Westminster Abbey. It was a grand event watched by millions on television. As queen, Elizabeth moved to Buckingham Palace. She had to balance her family life with her many new responsibilities. She worked hard to learn all about the government. She met with leaders often and read important papers every day. Elizabeth opened Parliament for the first time in November 1952. This was one of the many traditions she followed as queen. Her early years as queen were busy. She visited countries around the world to strengthen ties with them. People admired her dedication. Elizabeth's first big trip as queen was to Australia and New Zealand. She was the first British monarch to visit these countries. Everywhere she went, large crowds came to see her. She became a symbol of hope and unity for many people. Queen Elizabeth wanted to connect with people across the world. She traveled to many countries as part of her royal duties. In 1953, she and Philip went on a 6-month tour of the Commonwealth. It was the longest royal tour in history. During this trip, she visited Australia and New Zealand. These were the first visits by a ruling British monarch to these nations. The Queen also visited India in 1961. It was the first visit by a British monarch in 50 years. She wanted to show respect and friendship to the country. In 1977, she celebrated her Silver Jubilee, marking 25 years on the throne. She toured many parts of Britain and the world during this event. Elizabeth met leaders and citizens everywhere she went. She believed it was important to stay connected with people and their lives. The Queen's travels showed her interest in other cultures. She wanted to keep the monarchy relevant in a changing world. These visits helped the royal family stay important in the eyes of people. They showed Elizabeth's care for others. Her dedication to meeting people made her a beloved figure in many countries. She was seen as a symbol of stability. The 1990s were a hard time for the royal family. Many problems happened that made the public question the monarchy. In 1992, Elizabeth called the year Annus Horribilis, which means a horrible year. Many sad events took place that year. Prince Charles and Princess Diana separated. Prince Andrew and his wife Sarah also ended their marriage that same year. A fire damaged Windsor Castle, one of the Queen's homes, in 1992. This made the year even worse for her. The royal family faced more trouble when Diana and Charles divorced in 1996. The public loved Diana and was upset about the split. Things got harder when Diana died in a car accident in 1997. The Queen's response to the tragedy upset many people. At first, the Queen did not show her feelings about Diana's death. Some people thought she did not care, but this was not true. Later, Elizabeth spoke to the public and honored Diana. She also allowed the flag to fly at half-staff over Buckingham Palace. These actions helped the public feel better. Over time, people understood the Queen's quiet way of showing care and respect. In the 2000s, Queen Elizabeth worked to make the monarchy more modern. She wanted the royal family to stay important in changing times. She allowed cameras to show the royal family's private life. This helped people feel closer to them and understand their daily routines. The Queen also started paying taxes on her private income in 1992. This was a big step to show the royal family cared about fairness. Queen Elizabeth celebrated many anniversaries during her reign. Her Golden Jubilee in 2002 marked 50 years on the throne. During the Golden Jubilee, the Queen traveled to many countries. Big events were held in London, including parades and concerts. In 2012, she celebrated her Diamond Jubilee, marking 60 years as Queen. This showed her long-lasting service and dedication to her role. The Queen's role stayed strong even as the world changed. She became a symbol of tradition and stability for people everywhere. In 2015, Elizabeth became the longest-reigning British monarch. She passed Queen Victoria's record of 63 years and 216 days. People admired her for her long reign and her ability to lead with care and wisdom for so many years. In her later years, Queen Elizabeth had fewer public duties. She gave more tasks to her son Charles and other family members. Prince Philip, her husband of over 70 years, died in April 2021. The Queen said he was her strength and stay throughout her life. During his funeral, COVID-19 rules meant the Queen had to sit alone. The picture of her sitting quietly touched many hearts around the world. In June 2022, the Queen celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years on the throne. This made her the first British monarch to reach this milestone. Health problems made it hard for her to attend all the events. Still, people celebrated her long reign with parades and concerts. Just a few months later, on September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She was 96 years old. The Queen's funeral was held at Westminster Abbey. Leaders from all over the world came to honor her life and service. Crowds lined up for miles to see her casket as it lay in state. People waited hours to say goodbye to the queen they loved. Queen Elizabeth will always be remembered for her service, kindness, and dedication to her country and the world.